Alright guys, welcome back to our podcast. I believe this is episode 13. I hope it's 13 and I've numbered them all right. But I'm your host David, and today we're joined by Rob, and we've got a special guest joining us today. We have Jamie. Say hello guys.
Hello.
Hello.
So today it's just going to be sort of the channel members, me and Rob's lower numbers, but Jamie's coming along to prop up the numbers and share his thoughts. And very nice to have always a different point of view. As us channel members, we're all very, very biased. It's nice to have some other points of views.
No, never biased. Never biased.
I'm definitely biased, definitely.
Of course not. No bias at all.
So, some of you actually may know Jamie already. If you've been watching our battle reports, we know not everyone watches all of our content. Some people only watch specific things, but Jamie was kindly involved in 2 of our latest battle reports. I believe that was Necrons versus Tau and Salamanders versus Admech. Or did I get that the wrong way around, guys? I think I just did.
Wrong way around, mate, yeah.
Yeah, that was Tau and Admech and Necron Marines.
Okay, so that's something that David, do your research notes better next time. Absolutely fine. So yeah, but those 2 battle reports, I had an absolute pleasure editing those. Had a lot of fun watching them as well, guys. Jamie, how did you enjoy the experience? Did you enjoy playing on the channel, and did you just have a good time playing those battle reports? They were very enjoyable to watch.
Well, I always enjoy having a game against Rob. It's always a good laugh, and filming just added a completely different aspect to the hobby.
Okay.
It was really enjoyable.
Perfect. You're not just saying that because we've got you on the spot. You can lie if you want. It's absolutely fine. No one judges you here, except for we will judge you off camera and behind the scenes.
That's fine. I'm used to it.
Jamie, if you don't mind, just obviously with any guest that comes on, and I know you kind of give a bit of detail in your battle reports, but again, for those who haven't watched it, tell us a little bit about the armies that you like to play, and maybe if you don't mind sharing with us maybe your thoughts how you got into the hobby. Take it away.
So I mostly play Salamander Space Marine Successors, and I play Tau as well. That's a recent addition that I started around this time last year. Just got a load of stuff around Christmas time. I was like, yeah, let's just do a Tau army, why not? And really, I kind of got into the hobby the same way most people did. You start at like a very young age, probably about 13, 14. Back then, there was a Games Workshop in Brighthead. I don't know if either of you would have gone into that
Very
store.
familiar, yeah. Not that store particularly, but familiar with the area, yeah.
Nope.
And obviously, you go in, you see all these cool models. My first army was actually Lizardmen, and this was when I was 13. You just saw these dinosaur guys, and it was really cool. Fell out of the hobby in high school and picked it back up about 3 years ago. Started going to my local gaming club in Helensburgh and the one in Dumbarton, and just kind of took off from there.
Okay, excellent. So are you enjoying obviously you took time away from the hobby then, so was there to your experience a big jump and change in the hobby since leaving and then coming back, and are you enjoying it now as well, or?
Well, I never really played it properly the first time around. I mean, I was probably too young to even understand the rules when I was 13. They were slightly more complicated than they are now. I think that's not a huge exaggeration. But it was definitely a really enjoyable experience, and I just I wanted something. I always kept up with the lore, and I liked watching YouTube videos. There was some really good YouTube creators out there that do some really good lore videos, and I kind of always enjoyed listening to that, and it made me want to get back into the hobby. So yeah, just kind of like that.
And again, I'm going to put you on the spot because we all have to kind of take an army that we rally behind. I think there's no sort of qualms. I rally behind Thousand Suns quite a bit because I'm just a Magnus fanboy. But if any armies that you play or any armies you like, is there any army that you think defines you love playing the most, or you like collecting the most?
I think it kind of has to be the Salamanders. As those people who've seen the battle report that me and Rob did with my Marines, it's not a classic Salamanders colour scheme. It's kind of like a more Minotaurs colour scheme. But I just really enjoy the lore behind the Salamanders, both as a legion and as a chapter itself. It's got a very human aspect to a very inhuman kind of super soldier, and I really enjoy that kind of aspect of it.
Excellent. Perfect. Well, from me, Jamie, thank you for sharing. Obviously, some of your background, how you got into the hobby, and some of your armies. I would also say we'll expect to probably see those armies very, very soon in some way, in some regard. Certainly enjoyed your Tau list, if I'm going to be perfectly honest.
Why? Because it creamed Rob's Necrons.
No,
Not
no,
Necrons,
no.
Admech.
Yeah, mate, no, not at all. It was more. I'm a big Tau player myself, and I know Tau gets a lot of unjustified stick. So no offense, Rob, but when you were calling the Tau fish people, I was very satisfied to see those fish people destroy those toasters. So I will not be. I'm not going to complain.
Yes, and there should be, and hopefully there will be a clash of the Tau for the halibuts versus the salmon on the channel soon between you two, because from playing against David with his Tau and then playing with Jamie, you like me and Ross with Admech, you two guys play them very, very differently. And to be honest, I can't wait to see what happens with the Tau Codex and see how your two main playstyles either deviate or stay the same, and how you actually react. Because as most people know, is with Tau, I know we're diverting a little bit at the moment, but how Tau are at the moment being as low level competitive wise as they are, and even social gaming, how low that they actually are.
I fully agree.
How they will actually change in the upcoming months.
No, makes sense.
Yeah.
And Jamie, I'll more than happily play your Tau. More than happily. Although I think we do play slightly similar. I would say there's a lot of similarities in some ways. You clearly have an affinity for ghost kills.
I do love my ghost skills.
So
I do love them.
I need to say that's something I share. I think most of my latest Tau battle reports have been spamming ghost kills like they're going out of fashion. But I don't see why not. There was a time where they were kind of not taken. And I'll tell you a funny story really quickly, and then we'll move on to the main topics of discussion for tonight. But there was an episode on our channel back in just turning 8th edition. Our good friend Awen joined the channel to play Tau versus my Necrons, and his Ghost Kill defeated my Deceiver in combat. That actually happened. Yeah.
Combat Tau meta, I'm telling you, it's a thing.
Maybe I will not disagree or agree. I'll keep my points myself, but that happened, and it's probably one of the most embarrassing moments of my hobby career. Right, guys, we're going to crack on just with the actual points of discussion tonight. So we've got a couple of key points we wanted to kind of go over before we move into more sort of free, quick-fire questions, as I'll be chucking your way, guys. But one of the first things I thought would be really good, and this is obviously because we've got a guest on, back into the hobby for, as you just said there, the last 3 years. You've told us Salamanders is your sort of favourite army. But the first one really is going around the table, having a chat about what are our current favourite units in the game at the moment. Now, not our favourite units of all time, because my answer instantly is Magnus. But that doesn't answer the question. The question is, what is our favourite units at the moment in time? So what we're playing, and that can actually not just necessarily be on the table. It could be things in books and lore. You know, what characters in the books are really standing out to you. But yeah, just have a wee chat around what our favourite unit is at the moment that we're all currently using. So I'd like to take it maybe you, Rob, first of all, if you could share, because I know you've been playing quite a few games at the moment.
Yeah, well, what I've been trying to do, as always, is trying to learn Necrons itself. Not because it's a shooty army at all. It's a different aspect to the game, and it's a different way for me to play anyway. And I'm hoping when we all get back to some kind of similar, some sort of normality, is I want to start using that the list for tournament play instead of taking out my Admech, because Admech is still good, but I just want something different. Now, in lore-wise and gameplays, I think I've only played it twice. Once against Jamie, once against Rusty. Who if you have a look at a couple of our games coming up, you'll see this mad, Nurgle-infested, pestilent man who loves his demons. But it was the Silent King.
Yes.
And with, I know you've used it a couple of times, David, and he is just an absolute monster.
Yeah, agreed. Tough is a whole different kettle of fish.
Oh, it's on a whole new level of I'm gonna just sit here and you're not gonna be able to touch me whatsoever. Um, so and his story as well, because not many people know about the Silent King and how he actually became about. So so on and so forth. Um, so I've used it 2 or 3 times, but when I've used it 2 or 3 times, he's just an absolute monster.
Yeah.
But my favorite unit of all time, from especially 8th and 9th at the moment, I'm going to get slapped for it, but it's the Castellan robots.
Yeah, you're definitely going to get slapped for it. Obviously, we can't break COVID rules, so it'll be a post slapping. But but yep.
But I mean, a lot of it, yeah, they'll say yes, they're not necessarily OP, but they are just very, very strong for the points and what they can do. But if you read some of the background over them and that lot, and how they work and how they were developed by AdMech and so on and so forth. Yes, I am biased against AdMech. Always have been, always will be. That is my army for so many years, and I actually love them to bits. I can't get enough playing them. Hopefully, when the new codex drops, there's a little bit of tweaking and a little bit of manipulation with the army itself to make it have some combat orientation, but that's diverting. But with the stone robots on the background of them, they're just an absolute solid unit.
So,
absolute solid.
For the question, would you say it's a Silent King at the moment or Castellan robots? I'm thinking Silent King's probably the way you're going with the answer.
Yeah, it will be Silent King. I know I'm always wishy-washy at times with it, but I'm not as bad as Ross. But we miss you, Ross. But Silent King is one that I like to use. I said I've only 2 or 3 games, but it's just the complete stance of the model itself. I mean, I've got another one to paint for part of the commission itself. It's just going to be an absolute joy to paint.
Yeah, it's a good looking model, very good cast.
Yeah, but I say it's having 6 Castellan robots in the army just frightens the bejeebus out of anybody.
All right.
I can attest to
that. Yes.
Jamie, if we fling it over to you for a second, what would be having a wee think on it there? What do you go with?
I would have to say, at this moment in time, one of my favourite units to use at the moment has to be the Blade Guard vets from the Indominus box, and even the new custom built ones. In that game, I played with Rob with the Space Marines against the Necrons. They're just so good in game, but also it's kind of a throwback to the kind of traditional kind of Stern Guard, Vanguard vet kind of style of Marine, and it just gives the Space Marines so much flavor, I think, aesthetically, which is something I think, although I'm a massive Primaris fanboy, they do sorely lack that kind of detail in the kind of gold trimmings and all that kind of stuff that you see on some of the more classical Space Marine models.
Yeah. And is that Blade Guard just on your experience with Salamanders, or do you think just Blade Guard across the whole sort of spectrum of Space Marines? They're a unit that you think just stands out to you, regardless if it was Salamanders or not. They just still stand out to you at the moment.
Yeah, they just stand out. It's such a nice sculpt that they've got. I think other than that, I know it's going to be really controversial when I say that. I love my Invictor Tactical Warsuits. They are some of my favorite models that have come out over the past year or so, 2 years.
Do you know what I'm going to say next, don't you?
No.
Someone who made those models was clearly watching the Alien franchise a little bit too much.
Oh yeah, definitely. I just think it's such an insane looking model. I think it probably deserves more to be in the Guard than the Marines, but
yeah, I could see that. Mm-hmm.
It's just I actually love using it. And obviously in the games before lockdown that me and Rob played, I would run 2 or 3 of them in a game, with flamers, getting all the automatic hits with the Salamander traits and stuff like that, just torching everyone. But I think at this moment in time, it has to go to the Blade Guard vets and kind of that kind of aesthetic that they've kind of moved towards with the new Indominus box, with that kind of new style of Marines. Though I do have a couple Gravis heavy ancestors on the table at the moment, waiting to get primed and painted, and they're really nice as well. But we'll have to wait and see what they're like on the tabletop.
No.
With you saying about the Blade Guard, anybody with Marines now is just looking at Blade Guard with Dark Angels and put it under Deathwing, because they are absolutely broken under the Deathwing First Company. Absolutely horrific in every way. Yeah, you do. But like I said, with the Blade Guard itself, now as it stands, you will see multiple units of them, because they are horrific, and I mean absolutely horrific to shift under Deathwing.
Yeah. No, that makes sense.
And I don't think the class is objective secure in Deathwing, but just being that itself is just absolutely horrid. In a good way, but just playing against it is just frightening.
Tough. Well, thank you very much, Jamie. I'm gonna hit you with my unit, but see, before I hit you with my unit, guys, I just want to say I'm glad that someone without me raised the Silent King as one of the discussion points, because I'm still gonna gloat that I called the Silent King's release when no one believed me and no one trusted me. I did it live, and it's not even just a discussion point, it's on the internet for everyone to see that I called it first. And I'm so proud of that moment.
But I didn't disagree with you.
No, you didn't disagree with me. That is very true. And I did actually phrase the question in a really sneaky way so that none of you would say Silent King. But hey, that's how I work.
Yeah, I mean, like we said, is the Silent King background and the knowledge of him is very, very vague for people.
Of course.
I mean, if you've not been in the hobby for like 10, 15 years or something like that, looking at thinking about the Silent King, you wouldn't know who he was or what he did or anything. It's like bringing Vect for Jakari. If Vect comes back, there's going to be an absolute uproar.
Yeah. Well, uproar in a positive way, we hope.
Yes.
Well, first of all, we've clearly chosen as well different factions. So obviously Necrons has been now touted out. We've had Space Marines touted out. My actual favourite unit, and no, before anyone says Magnus, it's definitely not. That's my favourite unit of all time. But at the moment, it's actually the Tyranids Exocrine.
Oh, you dirty man.
Yeah, I'm glad, Jamie, that was a nice surprise for you there. No, the Exocrine is, again, not to give any spoilers away, but the Exocrine has just been used in one of my latest battle reports that we're currently updating at the moment. And historically, whenever I play Tyranids, I run Exocrines quite a lot. But I'm yet, in 8th and 9th, I am yet to play Exocrines, either on its own or stacking up as 2, and they've not performed well. For me, points-wise, they are just so well pointed. I don't think they're over-pointed or under-pointed, because they don't have an invul. And they only do well if you keep them still. And they are limited to 36 inches, which a lot of people say is a long range. But 36 inches can be easily danced around these days. There's a lot of ways to get around that. Especially if you're forced to move, you lose half of the Exocrine's abilities. But the Exocrine, if you can keep that guy standing still, he is an absolute joy to play with and an absolute terror to face. And I think it's one of the best units I've seen brought into a faction, because it only came out maybe 6 years ago, I think it was, it got introduced to Tyranids.
Something like
probably
that,
just towards the end of 7th, if I remember, when the Maliceptor came in and stuff like that. It came with those guys. But absolutely brilliant unit. It always pays back its points, but it's just a joy to play, because for shooting Tyranids, there's not much of the options that go around, but you're given a lot of dice to play with, and we all want to roll lots of dice, don't we? So the Exocrine's a really good way to do that, and it's just been an absolute standout performer for me on camera, off camera.
It's using that stratagem for I can't remember what it is.
Is it single-minded annihilation or something like that?
No, it's for the damage.
Yeah, so you're thinking
damage.
It's symbiotic. No, not symbiotic. It's I know what you mean. Basically, it gives you +1 damage if you're a monster, so its plasma cannon goes damage 3. But I think, Jamie, you're about to mention maybe something there. There's actually the best loadout for an Exocrine just now is one is Kronos as the faction.
Yep.
You go Kronos, so if you stay still, you get reroll hits of 1. But if you stay still, your ballistic skill goes to 3 up from 4 up, and you do 12 shots rather than 6 shots. You stack on the extra damage to make your plasma damage 3. But because you're Kronos, if you take the Psychic Awakening psychic spell Symbiostorm, then every hit roll of a 6 is an additional hit. But rules is written, if you're double tapping, or you've stayed still, that psychic ability actually gives you every hit roll of 5 and 6 because it's +1 to your hit rolls. And it's not modified, it's basically modified rolls will count because the Symbiostorm doesn't say unmodified hits, it just says every hit.
That's dirty. That's
the point. It will probably get errated, I think, or change in the Tyrannid Codex when it comes out. But rules is written, if you Symbiostorm, you're basically getting 2/3 of all your hits back are going to be 5s and 6s if you do the math behind it. You're going to get tons of hits. It's crazy. And you're re-rolling hits of 1. It's a filthy combination.
And the damage to go with it.
Yeah. Some people say its drawback is the plasma is only strength 7 and there's no way to make it stronger. But there comes a point where you're like, right, if you enough's enough. Like it's only about 170 odd points. If you're going to give it higher strength capabilities, you need to jack the points up, and I would agree. But the unit just always makes its points back. But that Symbiostorm is, that was a nice wee spot. That's very cheeky. And if you want to go even further, give the thing an adaptive physiology, where basically it gets a 5 up invul, and it's already toughness 8, so it's got a 3 up armor, 5 up invul, toughness 8, and it always uses the top characteristics then if you've given it that adaptive physiology. So bracketing the thing, no, you need to kill it to stop it really shooting well. Yeah.
That's just... Yeah, and to get rid of 1, you need to put a hell of a lot into it to drop it.
Yeah, the toughness 8 alone, anything that's toughness 8, you can't underestimate what you need to put towards killing it. I think a lot of people think they've got really powerful guns and d6 damage, but that toughness 8 eliminates a lot of wind rolls.
Yes.
A lot of wind rolls.
I mean, I did play in 7th, in 8th, sorry. At a local shop, I played against a guy who came in throwing his nids about and all that lot. Not quite nicely painted that lot, and said, I've been in this shop for so long, and nids haven't ever been broken, everything like that. You can throw whatever you want to me. And the manager knew what I was like. There's boasting, and then there's boasting, and then there's being an idiot and making people just feel crap. So I basically went, yeah, okay, I'll give you a game. So, have you ever played these before? And I played slightly dumb, and he had 2 Exocrines. So I went, I've got Admech. And I went, yeah, I'll go easy on you because he'd never seen me before. And I went, yeah, okay, fair enough. And turn 1, wiped out all his termagants, and dropped his Hive Tyrant, and dropped his Exocrine in one go. And the Exocrine dropped to 3 Dakabots from mortal wounds and that lot. And he went, oh, that's all broken. He said, really? And you brought 2 Exocrines? And he said, I'm broken.
No, if someone brings 2 Exocrines, you instantly know their game. I wouldn't say it's broken, but it's on a par with the Dakabots thing, definitely.
Yeah, but it's just the way that he actually acted and all that sort of thing is. I mean, the manager actually said, "Thank you very much for playing that." I went, yes, it's not. If I won or lost, it was a good game. He said no, but he was just sort of one of these people that having that sort of firepower, and it's a hell of a lot of firepower. Don't get me wrong.
Of course.
It's just how you use it.
I think if anyone brought 2 Exocrines, so say I bring 2 Exocrines and my opponent managed to destroy both of them, I wouldn't be salty or upset. If anything, I'd probably pause for a second and give them a round of applause. Because it's no mean feat. No. Alright guys, well, we're going to move on. We've got some more topics to discuss. We've got so much tonight. But yeah, glad you shared your sort of favourite units at the moment. We're not going to share our favourite units of all time because you're all wrong. It's obviously Magnus. I'm always going to push that every podcast.
Shut up.
But
I think I'd have to disagree.
But I'm glad to see we've got a nice spread across different armies, though. You know, the Blade Guard's a great shout. Never played them yet, but I love them, and I can see why you love them. You know, the Silent King. Well, I'm going to put my hands down and just bow to the man. The guy's incredible. There is no joke. The Silent King's a humongous addition and a great addition to the hobby. Exocrines, yeah, it's a more probably personal choice. I think not a lot of people have had the luxury of playing against them yet. And Tyranids seems to be a nice left field selection, but I absolutely love them. Moving on to probably a less easy one for us to answer, guys, and I'm kind of want to test your thought process and
God, here we go.
put a tough one to you. Yeah, well, that's how the podcasts work. We need to discuss the hot topics. So, basically, the topic of discussion here, guys, is should beta rules be used more often for outdated codexes? Give a bit of background here. Obviously, we're talking about the way the codex structure's coming out now. There's obviously going to be a delay until your codex comes round. That's just the way of things. However, we do know that there'll be playtesting always happening for all factions around the same time. They're always going to be getting playtested constantly. There's a big, massive work team that works on these behind the scenes at Games Workshop. But that then gives the luxury of, if they're working on beta testing these rules behind the scenes, do we think that, you know, like they did, I guess, with it was Adeptus Sororitas, correct me if I'm wrong, but they released a beta codex for you all to take and play, and one of the chapter approved?
Yeah, they did.
And that I actually thought, well done, Games Workshop. You're basically handing over some of the reins to the players, the community, and allowing us to take away your rules and give you honest feedback on it, us as the players, after all. And I thought that was a masterstroke from Games Workshop in shaping Adeptus Sororitas going forward. But do you feel that maybe things like a beta rules could be really good to bridge that temporary gap? Well, say for example you're waiting for that next Chaos Space Marine Codex to come out. Now, boy, do we know Chaos Space Marines need a bit of help. I'm not going to say new units because they've already had a whole new units chucked their way, and we all can't get everything we want. But things like, you know, beta test 2-wound Chaos Space Marines, because currently they're only 1 wound. But 2-wounding Chaos Space Marines, having all these things beta tested, I guess it allows players to stay apace with other codexes to some degree, but it also allows the company to get that really good feedback ahead of time. It's a bit of an open-ended question here, guys, a lot of elements and facets to it, but handing over to you, Jamie, would you like the idea of getting access to beta codexes while you're waiting for, say, your Tau codex to drop before it lands in 9th edition?
That is a very interesting question, because obviously we've all played 8th edition. We know how quickly those codexes came out. And Rob will know this, one of the armies that are really struggling at the moment is Genestealer Cult.
Yeah.
That is one of the most recent codexes to be released in the 8th edition lineup. I think it was the last or the second last codex. So would we class that as an old codex, even though it's probably one of the most recent in the publishing lineup?
It's a good point. Yep, very good point.
Yet it's still one of the most underpowered armies in the game. And obviously AdMech, one of the first armies released, or codexes released in 8th edition, is probably one of the most powerful codexes still running at the moment. Yes, I think beta rules would be good, but you have to make sure that beta rules are being put out for those armies that are needing the beta rules right away, and not just, AdMech are like published in 2017, for example. I know it probably wasn't 2017, but
no, but I get your point. Yep.
Let's give them new rules, and let's just leave Genestealer Cult to the side at the moment. They only got published in 2018, 2019. It's a tough bridge to gap, and it would be interesting to see how Games Workshop would approach that kind of situation.
So that's a really good point. Just to pause for a second there. So you kind of to break it down, you agree that the beta rules is something you think could be a good idea for the armies that are suffering rule-wise. Is that right to say, right?
Yeah,
but
definitely.
Not to widespread it out for, if you don't have a codex, it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get beta rules. Your army is performing well at the moment, so we don't necessarily want to give you beta rules. But that army of, as you said, Genestealer Cult, they're clearly struggling. Let's give them the beta rules we're currently working on behind the scenes, because they will be working on them behind the scenes.
Yeah, definitely.
But then that begs another question. How do you judge what army is underperforming? Do you go by what the community consensus is? Because we do have a lot of players who complain a lot. Doesn't necessarily mean they're right. I hear a lot of noise about some armies that are down at the bottom, but then a month later they go to a tournament and dominate it.
Yeah,
So it's a tough one.
I suppose you could look at what the Warhammer community is doing at the moment, and with the meta watch, I suppose that'd be one way to kind of go with it.
Excellent, yeah, that would work.
But I don't know. It's kind of it both be both public perception and kind of tournament feedback and casual game feedback, I would say.
Okay, so a good mix of the two. Rob, what's your thinking on this? The beta rules.
Well, as we all know, the play testers. So you've got the likes of Tabletop Tactics, you've got Titans, you've got Frontline Gaming, all that over in America. There has been a hell of a lot of high-level gamers, tournament players, a lot of it, that have been playtesting this for some time to try and get the balance right. And it is working. When the new codexes drop, it is working, and they are very much of a muchness on par with each other. But as like Jamie's saying, is as soon as you start looking at other codexes that are sort of mid to late tier, Gene Stealer Code have always been sort of not mid tier, but the bottom end of the pile because of the abilities and how basically weak they are, and models and points wise is just all over the place, and it's not bringing in people to play it full blown. I mean, people play Gene Stealer Code for an absolute laugh and a giggle, which is great because that's what I've been doing, and they are so weird and wonderful. It puts a complete different spin onto the game itself. But with people, people at the moment, they want versatility between every army. You turn up to a shop,
okay,
and you go, I want to play Gene Stealer Cult, or I want to play Tau. Brilliant, yeah, go for it. But when they start playing with that Tommy next door or Gillian down the road or anything like that, is having the ability to play at the same level as everybody. And those they all know, from high within GW all the way down to tournament players to casual gamers, is the sort of levels that each of the races are. Not just Space Marines, but factions within factions.
Yeah, of course.
So you need to look at how are they going to interact with everybody else, how they are suffering. How I mean, a lot of it as well is money. What armies are they selling quickly? What are they making more money out of? What aren't they making money out of? Right, so for instance, Tau and Gene Stealer Cult that we keep on going back to because they are sort of quite low down. People choose Tau because of their aesthetics of it. Japanese manga, great. Gene Stealer Cult because they're just so weird. But what are they selling on there? And why are they low value armies? Because they aren't competitive at the moment against the likes of Necrons, Marines, Guard even. You just struggle like hell, and people don't want to go take away an army that's got absolute next to zero chance of winning.
It's a fair point. I think though, Gene Stealer Cult, I'm going to give just two pennies of thought for Gene Stealer Cult. I remember Gene Stealer Cult when it first landed, and you had the box set with, correct me if I'm wrong, was it Death Watch?
Yes.
Yeah. So
Overwatch.
Sorry. So I remember I started a wee Gene Stealer Cult army just basically off of that box set, and I remember in my local store running that Gene Stealer Cult army. This is actually probably about a few months before the channel started, and I remember running Gene Stealer Cult when they had the option of basically, if you got first turn, you could basically have your whole army deployed within like nearly just over an inch of everyone and charge them, and you'd win straight away. And I remember basically winning almost every single game with Gene Stealer Cult that I played, as long as I could get my charges off, and they were very, very competitive. Then I remember 8th edition comes along, and essentially that was removed. You couldn't do that. It wasn't allowed. but I think that came very shortly after Genestealer Cult was even released. Very close. So Genestealer Cult came out at the end of a run for the hobby, and then instantly got hit hard, but it was on a high. And then 8th edition, it seemed to be the same. 8th edition Genestealer Cult didn't play the same as did in 7th. Went towards the end of the run of codexes. I think their codex came out towards the end of 8th edition, and I think there was a bit humming and hawing. It was great, it wasn't great, but it seemed to prop them up a wee bit. And then 9th edition lands, and they go back down the pile again. So it seems to be this is an army, if we're just focusing on Genestealer Cult, it's really poor timing for them. They seem to have been hit hard at the end of every edition. And beta rules, do you think, could bridge that gap, giving them that temporary potential fix for it?
They need something. I mean, you're saying about the last book, Sister Bell, they were released right at the very end of the
Mm-hmm. Yep.
We all knew that, but at the same time, that was like a blueprint in certain ways of how 9th was going to go.
Yep.
So it's sort of a balancing act to having a codex that is relevant for 8th edition, that can run in 8th without any issues and not be overpowered, but then go into 9th edition as basically the original codex,
Mm-hmm.
and stay on par with everybody, but at the same time, I don't know. It's an awkward one. That's one of the codexes that is so up in the air on. Is an 8th edition codex, or is it a 9th edition codex, and how it actually works.
Okay.
But yeah, Genestealer Cult and Tal, for instance, for definite, both armies need a complete overhaul.
Okay. So I want to quickly add a quick penny. I thought I'm just I will try and maybe move away from Genestealer Cult as a whole. It's mainly the beta rules is an interesting one. I think, do we all remember? I think before sort of 8th edition landed, one of the community gripes was the codex releases were too long. It took too long between each codex coming out. Your army was left in the lurch, and there was that sort of power creep. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I remember that community not being happy about how long it took for their codex to come out.
Correct.
Yeah. So GW did slightly fix that in 8th edition, and Jamie, you alluded to the fact I think they brought the codexes out relatively quickly.
Yeah, I think they were doing it 2 at a time.
Yeah. So they were, yeah. And I think that helped massively. It did help massively. But they left themselves another gap where, yes, you had your codex out quicker, but if your codex was on the early release side, the rules for the game as a whole and how armies were designed to play started to shift and evolve. Like, I remember, I think some of the aura abilities didn't translate in the first few codexes, but then a lot of aura abilities in 8th edition started to hit every codex that was getting released in the sort of second half of 8th edition. And then there was a lot of things, like they were errating a lot of things, they were rewriting a lot of rules. It's an interesting one, that if you bring out the codexes too soon, that you could end up leaving other codexes behind and having to get them quickly rewritten again or quickly updated. And the beta thing, just to add my 10p to the conversation, is I believe the beta rules, I think Jamie's hit the nail on the head, shouldn't be given to every single army that's currently out, because you might have an army like, for example, let's take one, I don't even know who's on top anymore at the moment, but let's take Harlequins. Imagine Harlequins were on top.
Yeah.
Although I'm saying that and someone in the chat's going to go, Harlequins won this tournament last week. I don't really keep up with the scene, unfortunately. I should, but
actually, I think Demons won the GT in Australia.
Well, there we go.
Last weekend.
That was Chaos. What the Chaos Marines actually did it.
So let's use Chaos Marines in. So they're doing really well. I imagine they're doing really well at the moment. Not saying they are, I'm just saying using them as an example here. So Chaos are doing really well, and you bring out a beta codex for them, but you're giving these new design rule types for how 9th edition should be played and updating, say, Genestealer Cult. That army that's already doing really well may take extra further advantage from getting access to beta rules when their codex is already really solid, putting them even further ahead of other armies. So I fully agree with Jamie, may not in the same reasoning, but my opinion be beta codex you should only be given out to the armies that need them, to give them that sort of edge. Because the last thing you say you want to do, and what Rob mentioned, is you want to play an army because you like it, you also want to win now and then. You don't want to,
It's a game.
Yeah. You want to have a couple of wins under your belt with them, so that's fair enough. The beta one could help bridge the gap, but it's whether or not GW is willing to entrust the community with getting access to so much so quickly and so soon, and how they would obviously manage the feedback as well. How would they equally correlate every player's feedback and actually use it to their advantage to design the rules? It's a tough one. The one thing I would say though is I don't quite like with beta rules, and they kind of did it with the erratas last year in 8th, or not last year, maybe 2 years ago. Things like bolter discipline, where they would say you can use it, you don't have. Maybe actually it may not have been bolter discipline, but it was some rules that you could use, you didn't have to use, or it was for competitive only or match play only. Just bring out beta rules that are going to impact all style of play.
You mean like the rule of 3?
The rule of 3, yeah. Just bring it out, get it done there, and it's done.
Because it was Smite as well, wasn't it?
Smite was another one. It leaves these sort of things up for interpretation, and just get an honest feedback from all player sets. The basic player, the competitive player, or even the player that only does it for the lore. Don't release rule sets for only just the competitive, or beta rules only just for the common player, because you're going to get a different perspective of the rule and how it's played. If you release the same rule across all player types, you're probably going to get a more even spread if that rules have worked or not, or if it should or shouldn't be implemented. But I hadn't thought about releasing beta to only the armies that are struggling until you said that, Jamie, because I was going to come on this podcast and say I'm fully behind beta rules, and I would just say give it to every codex that hasn't got an updated codex yet. But my thinking slightly changed in that regard.
Yeah, I mean, you do have to consider power creep. And obviously they kind of bridged the gap slightly with Psychic Awakening, but Psychic Awakening only did some stuff for some armies and loads of stuff for others.
A lot of it was, on Psychic Awakening as well was down to lore itself. I mean, with going into Psychic Awakening is Engine War. Now, being a massive AdMech fan, Engine War, it was absolutely fantastic, and it still is now, and it's one of the best Psychic Awakening books out there. Being biased, but with the warlord trait of the divinations of the Magos, for every additional hit is every 6 to hit is an additional hit, is so strong. And you stick it with Dakabots, and that is a serious amount of pain being thrown about because of Engine War. I mean, the Priory Nexus, well, not Priory Nexus, but the Priory Necron book. Such a nice book. Don't get me wrong, I really enjoyed it. The lore in it was fantastic. Bringing in Luminor Ceres as a new model. Love the model. It's on my shelf yet to paint for my Tomb World. But it was sort of a bit of lackluster.
Well, it was lackluster because I've had a debate with this many a time now with people. Pariah came out completely the wrong time. Too close to Indomitus. Far too close. Because what happened is you brought all these new stuff for Pariah, which there wasn't a lot actually for Necrons. Probably, yeah, hardly anything. And I knew they'd done that deliberately because Indomitus was in the headlines. However, when it came out, you got to use some of the Pariah stuff for a very short time, because after 9th edition lands with Indomitus, Pariah is essentially obsolete.
Yeah, to an extent, yes.
Very poor thinking. But that's the problem though, when Psychic Awakening was clearly a campaign, and when you run that campaign series of books, you need to make sure you're going to get them out in time that it doesn't impact your other launches that are to come, things like Indomitus. Interesting one. Guys, I'm conscious of time on the podcast. We need to move on because we've got plenty more topics to discuss, but that was a good one. I quite liked everyone's thinking process on that, so thank you very much for sharing. And Jamie, I think you might be the first man on podcast history to make me change my opinion on something. Trust me, that's not easy to do.
Mind of a historian, that's what it is.
Yeah, I'm very stubborn, so well done there. I'll clip this podcast so you can save that to yourself. Don't worry about it. Right, guys. So moving on, we've got some. This is the next section, which is obviously the Warhammer community updates. or just some sort of free formatting questions, just some quick fire stuff. So for those some of the who watch the podcast, some still believe some of these questions that I give you all are rehearsed answers. No, they're not, and this section always proves it, because this is always open to interpretation. So we've had a couple of weeks now, and it was slightly mentioned on the last podcast, but we kind of didn't really analyse it in any sort of fashion. And we just want a sort of quick fire thoughts. Now, I myself have not had a chance to use them, although that will be changing as of later this week. But the Maelstrom of War missions have got released on White Dwarf, so we highlighted it on the last podcast. But I believe we have some people on this podcast just now that have used them. Correct me if I'm wrong, gentlemen.
We were going to use them.
Okay, I'm corrected.
No, it was for what we did. They seem very convoluted on there, and
okay.
My thoughts of it, reading it, was, I'm sorry to say, but it's sort of like, it was great, absolutely great. Another method of playing the game. Love it. More ways of playing the game, the better. At the same time, it's the card element that everybody misses.
I've read them too, and I had a funny feeling that was going to come up today. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, as I always do, the game between me and you, Dave, Harlequins and Thousand Sons, I always come back to that, because one, it was a fantastic game.
It was, yeah.
Two, very close, but three, it's all down to the Maelstrom cards.
The cards was what changed it. You're totally right.
Yeah. So if you haven't watched it, guys, go back through our archive and look at Thousand Sons versus Harlequins with me and David. Fantastic game. It was an absolute scream, but at the same time, it was one of those games that the Maelstrom of War cards made such a difference, such an impact on the game, that it was such a good game.
I'm not going to coin any famous cartoon shows, but the heart of the cards definitely was what won that game.
Oh.
I need to say it because I'll say it still again. If you watch the battle report, Rob, you were definitely destined to win that battle report. Well, you definitely were. It was the one card pool, and I still think that card should be banned.
So what you're saying is he activated your trap card?
Yes, he activated my trap card. But it's that tactical objective. Like, for Thousand Sons, I get it. Basically, it's the more spells you cast, the more points you get up to a maximum of points. But you're giving that to an army which is going to be casting spells for fun, right? And it feels a bit unbalanced. But when that card came, unfortunately, dynamics changed. Yeah, it's very unbalanced. It should be banned. I fully agree. I don't think I've ever drawn that card ever again, by the way, Rob, when tactical objectives were out.
Yeah. I mean, scoring like 8 victory points off of 2 cards, it's like, how? And I mean, I fought back really hard, but at the same time,
yeah, definitely.
It's like having 8 points on just a card that you just went, yeah, I'll just sit here and just roll a couple of dice here, and then, oh look, I've scored 8 victory points for
it was unbalanced. Yeah.
So
I'm going to quickly just chime in if you don't mind, because I like your line of thinking with that. I actually read, I've not used them, the Maelstrom, but I read the Maelstrom stuff in the White Dwarf, and I like the line of thinking that Games Workshop were going down, because obviously one of the hobby gripes at the moment is some of the missions are a bit too bland. Need a bit more variety of scoring points. So they've introduced a method of achieving that for all the players, but it doesn't feel as though why could you not just release a new set of tactical objective cards in a box? One, you're going to make money because people are going to buy them, but just bring back the cards. That's it. That's really all we asked for. That's all we needed. I don't need to have to refer to all these different tables upon tables. That's what got me. I was like, you're just adding more. The point for me of 8th and 9th edition was always meant to be you were trying to move away from the 7th edition complexities of winning a game and playing a game. So you're trying to simplify the game. But adding in a White Dwarf, which by the way you have to then buy the White Dwarf to get access to them all, which eventually I think they will bring them out. But just here's a wee box of cards. There you go, done. Draw some cards, shuffle some cards and draw some cards, and there you got your extra points. Let the cards decide, and that adds an element of randomness to the game, which we did discuss in one of our last podcasts. But yeah, I think they missed a trick there. They've answered us by giving us some more objectives, just maybe not what the player base wanted. Jamie, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, for me, playing 8th edition, Maelstrom was always my favourite way to play it. Eternal War never really did it for me. I always felt it was a bit too stringent, and there wasn't the randomness that I enjoyed playing a game of 40k, and that's what Maelstrom provided. Yeah, when I saw a few people do battle reports of it, I was like, this is just... I don't enjoy the admin side of it.
Yeah.
It was too... Oh, you need to get a pen out, you need to write down your tactical objectives, you need to make sure you remember what you are. Yeah, it's just... Cards would make it so much easier, and I think we will see cards coming in probably the next couple months for Maelstrom, or maybe even in the chapter proof that's been announced.
Yeah.
Potentially.
Yeah, I mean, as well is everybody was saying we want to get away with having 16 million books on a separate table.
Yeah.
To play this game. It got to the stage in 8th and in 7th, to be honest, whereby you had to have a small mini library being carried about with yourself just to play the game. And everybody, that was anybody, that all said we want to get away with that because we don't want to be carrying 150, 200 pounds worth of books around with us just to have a game.
Yeah, it was too much, wasn't it?
Yeah, but I mean, having the cards as they are, brilliant idea, no problem at all. But it's just the ruling around them is just it just didn't feel right, and could see where they're going. I just don't think they executed it as well as what they could.
I think they're going in the right direction.
Yes.
With it.
Yeah, and they're listening to the community. It's just maybe go back to the drawing board in this one, possibly have another look at it. I guess this could be a perfect example of maybe betaing things. Give us access to it. Don't make it a set in stone thing. This is how Maelstrom's going to be going forward. Here, guys, have a think about it and let us know. Did it work for you? Did it not work for you? Fair enough. Well, I'm going to end this point on Maelstrom just by a quick yes or no answer to you guys. On the current setup, this is don't factor in if cards are coming or not, or it changes at all. But as it currently is for Maelstrom, will you be using it in your games or will you not be?
Yes, I want to try it out myself.
Oh, it was going to be a no from me unless Rob makes me.
Right, okay. Unless you're forced.
It's sort of what I would do.
I'll play one to see how it goes, but yes, I don't know. I'm not sold on the kind of picking from like 3 different tables and doing that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, for something for the channel is for people to watch is I would have a test out against the likes of Jamie and Rusty picks and all that lot first off, and then if I feel that it's a viable gameplay, then yes, by all means. But just the way I've seen it being played at the moment and how it reads, I need to actually play it properly to be able to then make my final decision.
Well, I'm going to quickly chime in and say I will be testing it, that's for sure. But from a selfish point of view of having to edit battle reports, I'll be excited. The less use of it, the better. Because the admin side is going to be a pain. That's my only concern. And trying to keep the viewer up to date with the objectives is already a very challenging thing as it is. Although that's where I hope the cards will come in, because you can just show that on camera and away you go. Done. Nice and simple.
Exactly.
Right, okay, we've got more topics. We're not finished here, guys. We always have more stuff to talk about. Moving on to some of the other community posts that have actually happened. I'm actually wanting to kind of take this away from the game, right? I wanted to focus on, there's 2 more community posts coming. I'm going to save the best one for last, but there was a latest update on, I think it was sort of earlier today and then the day before. You had updates for the new animations that are coming to Games Workshop. So I'm sure we've all maybe seen some trailers by now. If not, if you haven't, I highly encourage those who are listening to the podcast, go on YouTube, search for things like the Exodite, things like that. Just have a look at them. Some great animations coming to Games Workshop in, I believe, late 2021 and into 2022. Some exciting times ahead for yous who love the hobby, not just for playing it, you just love the lore. So that's going to be fun. But who's seen the trailer for the Exodite first of all on here?
I've not. I've seen little bits, but just for work and the usual
Yeah.
adulting and all that. I've not had the chance on it, but by all accounts, it is quite good.
And what about you, Jamie? I'd imagine as a Tau player like myself, you must have seen it.
I'm actually going to let you down and say I've not watched it yet. I
Oh
saw the
my
community
word.
post yesterday. Obviously, it was my birthday yesterday, so I was a bit preoccupied dealing with stuff and all that kind of shenanigans. But
No excuse. No excuse.
I actually haven't barely been on my phone for the past 2 days, so
Okay.
and obviously seminars and uni and stuff. But I did see that they've taken like Astartes and made it official, and it makes me so happy because I love Astartes. I think his work is so good.
Yep. Phenomenal.
Yeah, so I'm really happy to see the way that Games Workshop are kind of taking ownership of that kind of fan-made branding that they've received. It's really a really good way to be going with it.
So for you guys then who haven't seen the trailers, I'm just going to give a wee sort of lowdown. Again, guys, just for those who are listening, if you want to go and check it, there was a 10th of March on the Warhammer community site post called Introducing the Next Wave of Warhammer Animations. Okay, so as we just alluded to, Astartes was introduced to the mix, which I think nearly everyone who listens to our podcast will have seen those videos. Probably the best animation, fan-made animation I've ever seen. I can't think. There's great other channels out there, but that might to me stands out as the pinnacle to aim for.
Yeah, I mean the Hellreach one's pretty good, but
Hellreach is good, yeah. So they've been brought in to make it an official Games Workshop project, which means we don't really know yet what's coming, but we think with them getting the backing, the support, apparently their team's getting extended, we're hoping there's going to be an Astartes show coming out. The next one was obviously the Lost Legion studios get added. They're the ones that are, I believe, working on. I think that's the Exodite, I believe. So they're working on a Tal TV show or a Tal series coming. Again, looks absolutely incredible for you Tal players out there. There's a tease of stealthy stuff. Maybe I think it's like a stealth suit or a crisis suit. It just looks great, the animation.
It's to be as the Shazray or the stealth team.
We've also got Paxel Art, which are joining the show, and also Codex Films are all joining. Basically, it looks like you're going to be getting Astartes, you've got some Tau stuff coming, you've got some Black Templar stuff coming. I know there's a lot of Black Templar fanboys out there. And you've got some Iron Warrior shenanigans kicking in. And I think Drukhari was teased from the guys who do the Iron Warriors animations. I already know there's stuff already pre-released, like Blood Angels is still in the work. There's a lot of shows coming. It's exciting times for those who maybe don't play the hobby. They're just into the Games Workshop franchise, either for games or movies, TV shows. Exciting times. And I feel this is a really good step forward to expand the hobby to new audiences as well, through the art of this TV shows. And then the last one, guys. So obviously I'm not going to talk about that one too much because neither of you have seen the trailer, so that rules that out. The big one. The 8th of March. What did we get on the 8th of March? We got the new Monday model. We got Bellicor.
Such a good model.
Good. I'm glad the reactions are unanimous. So Bellicor is something I use quite frequently on the channel with my demons. But I was going to be using them in the demons game I just played there. But ever since I've seen the new model, I can't play Bellicor until I get the new one. I'll be doing it in Justice. Bellicor is finally landed of the Primarch stature that he deserves. Give us your thoughts, guys. Come on.
Just one. I don't know who the sculptor is on that lot. But Jesus Christ, such a stunning piece. They've really gone to town on how that model is. I mean, it's been a long time coming for him, and it's supposed to be the first demon prince itself. And he's now just made an absolute banging entrance.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't wait to do it as a painting project. Yes, it may tease me into doing a demon army or something like that because I don't really have any chaos. Don't say Admech before anything else, please, guys.
Admech.
Yep, shut up. But it's just an absolute stunning piece on there.
It's phenomenal.
That base, people are just going to take and go. And if you're not a master painter, excuse me, or anything like that, you're going to look at that base and go, "How the hell am I going to paint that?" So much detail, it's unreal.
Yeah, and I like as well, it's interchangeable between the Chaos Warrior and the Primaris Lieutenant. You've got a choice.
Yeah, and there's so many memes out there of, oh look, GW just released another Primaris Lieutenant.
Well, how many is there now?
Yeah, exactly. Just so many. But at the same time, they've done it an absolute justice. Stunning piece, absolute. Yeah,
it's one of the best looking models I think I've seen in a good number of years. I'm not going to include it on the par with, like, say it's better or worse than the Primarchs, the Demon Primarchs that is, not Rowboat Girlyman himself. But it is phenomenal. It's a great model. I think Be'lakor, for the stature of Be'lakor and the story of fantasy and 40k, deserved a Primarch S size model. He's finally got it. But here's the important question for you both. With a model of this size, right, you look at the sheer scale of this model, surely that would then include that the current rule set he has to be updated.
It will be.
I was going to say the same thing.
Yeah.
It will be, because you will now be a Supreme Commander on there. Because if you, like me, use Battlescribe, if you do like a Supreme Commander detachment, it says about their /Demon Prince. And I've got a very good, I've got an inkling that it will be in the same realms of the Silent King as a Supreme Commander.
Well, he's now just going to be like a Demon Primarch. You're right. He's going to be on a par with these guys, with these sort of people we're naming there. Definitely.
Yeah. So how many points is he at the moment?
Let me. I can't actually declare official points, unfortunately, due to GW rules. But I can say he's above 200 odd, I believe.
Right. Okay. So he's not in the Silent King realms, but I think he will go up to Robo Girlyman's sort of level of points, or slightly higher for his sheer size. I mean, if you look at the pictures in detail that people release on community, he's the size of a Bloodthirster, and he makes Bloodthirster look small. Now that's not a easy feat to do in any way, but
he's
just the stature of him.
He's currently 8 wounds in the current wound set, and I think only, I would say, his legs are 8 wounds. If I'm going to go by 4 wounds a piece, if I'm going to go by the full model, this guy needs to be a 16 wound upwards sort of guy. Top tier, top end of the spectrum.
Well, in that case, do you think he should have a rule similar to the Catans then? Like, or even, what's his name? The orc guy.
They can only, you mean Gazco, yeah, so you can only... We actually had a highlight on this on the last podcast when we were discussing units we felt should get updated. And I clearly said the Swarmlord needs to be done, but also the Swarmlord needs to get the rule of he can only suffer so many wounds, like you've just said. I believe all things like Demon Primarchs, with the exception of Mortarion, because he's hard enough to kill as it is, but I believe all bigger units of that size, as soon as you hit 16 wounds plus, you can be targeted in one turn. Give them the ability, like you said from the Catan, they can only suffer so many wounds a phase. Definitely. And it's obvious Be'lakor is going to be the number one guy on the Demon faction. He should have it without a doubt, because he's only going to move maybe
12.
Well, at the moment he moves. This is an interesting one actually, because he moves 14 inches, right? Currently, which is actually faster than a Bloodthirster. Bloodthirsters only move 12, so he moves faster than a Bloodthirster. But he's getting a model update. He's probably still going to have, I think he's either going to move 14 or 16 inches. So he's going to be able to zip around the board very, very fast. but it still will potentially not give him the option of a turn 1 charge. If he's not going to be able to do a turn 1 charge, then by all means, give the guy the ability to stay alive for a couple of phases. If you're going to say that he can move really, really fast and get a turn 1 charge, then I would say Be'lakor shouldn't be allowed to ignore so many wounds a phase. Because as that potentially is just going to come in and kill you. It's a tough one.
Completely agree on that. I mean, it just needs some way of balancing him out. Yes, now they've released an epic model for him. Every man and his dog will want to get hold of it. But at the same time, the rule set needs to be in the same vein. If not, it'll just crash and burn.
See, the Jamie, you raised a good point about the rule thing. I'm going off topic here. Gazkul gets to ignore so many wins a phase, right? Interestingly enough, Gazkul is one that I feel he deserves it, although he's only just above 10 wounds. Catan deserves it. Bloodthirsters don't have it. They don't have it. They've got a way to get it through the Exalted Demons table. But basically, I think there's a lot of units, Be'lakor being one that needs to get it. I think GW needs to actually, on that topic, review some of their units and actually spread it across a few others in other armies. But it's a good point to raise, definitely.
They need something. I mean, you've got gods, you've got minions of gods running about. You need to have something to show that they are godlike.
Yeah.
They need something like that because you'll take it, and again, I use the word lackluster, and you just don't want to take him anymore.
All right, well, we're almost wrapping things up, guys. So far, I just want to pause for a second. Been very good discussion points. Jamie, thank you as well for your contributions so far. It's been mind opening. A lot of good points raised. But we're going to come to the last section of the podcast, as we're probably maybe creeping up to or just creeping over the hour mark, where we take ourselves out of the hobby for a couple of minutes, take our hobby hats off, and talk about something just completely unrelated. And usually, we discuss what games we're playing, what we're doing with our time, what shows we're watching, what movies we're watching, what armies maybe are we painting, even though that's kind of hobby related, I guess. But I'm actually going to, Jamie, just for yourself, just as a sort of side topic, not necessarily what you're doing like game-wise, movie-wise, but have you, just again, honestly, have you enjoyed the sort of stuff you've done with the channel so far? And in particular, is there anyone in the channel and their armies you want to face off against next? That's the question I want to pose to you as a closing question. I'm putting you on the spot because I have the luxury to do so.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yes, I am really enjoying getting and engaging with the channel. It's an experience I never really thought I'd get or have the chance to do. It just opens up a whole new dimension to the hobby itself. And to be perfectly honest, I'd be happy to take on anyone, anytime on the channel. So, and crush. Exactly. Crush you under the boot of the Imperium.
Okay, bold statement. That's fighting words, Jamie. I like it.
It is. It's the only way.
Okay, like it. Fair enough then. Well, I'm sure as we go on, I think obviously you might have some additional games, I think, with Rob and stuff like that. But at some point, obviously, when the COVID rules of lifted, and we can get out of our little COVID bubbles, because at the moment, I think you've played with Rob. I can only play with Ross at the moment. But when that expands, by all means, we'll get some games.
100%.
I do feel a Tau Civil War is definitely in order. We'll see how, because we've got this, looks like we've got very similar units. Obviously your Salamanders, you might want to take them a wee shot against Ross's Chaos. I'm a Chaos player, but apparently Ross just owns Chaos at the moment. I don't have the time to play them. When I play Chaos, I get turn one, a lot of curb stomping, so I need to avoid that from my repertoire. Rob, Rob, passing it on to yourself. I'm going to take away the hobby questions from you because you have the luxury of playing anyone you want on the channel. But yeah, any movies, any TV shows you're currently getting your free time to watch at the moment, or if you're taking yourself away from your painting schedule, any games that you're getting to play in your downtime?
Sadly, my schedule is at a level whereby I don't get very much free time. My workload is at a level that is just ridiculous. It's a time of year for my work itself.
Tough time, man in demand.
Yes, for what I do and how I have to deal with it is it's not easy. I mean, I'm still on my Necron trek for commission painting. Just whilst I'm chatting away, I'm actually basing up some Ophidian destroyers for
Very nice.
which love the models themselves. So got that worked out last night. It's like just over 7,000 points worth of my own Necrons. 4,000 points worth of that are actually painted. So no. Just finished the Chronomancer, which is a stunning model. And between me and Jamie, we're getting another box. One for me to have another Chronomancer and some more flayed ones, and for him to have more heavy intercessors.
Yes.
Yay! Those heavy intercessors, guys, are just stunning models. They're absolutely huge.
Oh, they are.
Big clunky Gravis boys.
Yeah.
I'm going to be running an entire Gravis list at some point. It's going to happen.
Sounds
It's
pretty.
going to happen.
Boys, wouldn't you? Typical. But movie and TV wise, watching random car documentaries.
You're making me shiver.
Yeah, so I like guys that take old vehicles and revamp them and that lot.
Well, that's good. So I thought you were going to talk about like Top Gear and stuff, and I was about to cut the podcast short.
You're an old man.
We don't talk about ages in the podcast, Jamie. Rule number 1.
Yep. Rule number 2: learn from your elders. But it's like guys that are over in America that get old 50s and 60s cars and just revamp them and that lot. But like I said, my time at the moment is very, very precious to me. Even in lockdown, for me, working for what I do is just so much. It's unreal. It's frightening.
Thank you very much, Rob. Well,
that's all right.
I'll just end it really quickly. Nothing more to report, but for those who haven't watched it, and if you have, everyone needs to get on Snowpiercer. Get your Netflix subscriptions on, get Snowpiercer on, and enjoy the show. Sean Bean is a fabulous man, and this show has given him a definite platform to showcase he can be a phenomenal villain. As a massive Lord of the Rings fan, it's tough for me to watch him be this nasty, but my god, this show is phenomenal. So if no one's not watched it yet, they're 1.5 seasons in, I highly recommend you get it on at some point. And don't factor in the original movie into your thinking. They're not connected.
So you didn't actually die in the first 20 minutes then?
Don't know yet.
First season.
Don't know yet. Yeah. He's not in the first season.
Oh,
all right.
He was introduced in the second season, and there's no spoilers there because he's not in the credits in the first season, so he's obviously not there. But yeah, it's second season, but the second season isn't finished yet, guys, and I will not give away any reveals other than I think there's 6 episodes out of 10 in, and they're usually about 40-50 minutes an episode. You definitely have to give it a watch, but everyone's now starting to realise the show isn't the same as the film. They're not connected. It's a new way of thinking, a new story being told. Guys, get on there, enjoy Snowpiercer if you can. And that's what I've been doing with my spare time in the background, just watching some apocalyptic train rides. It's great. Can't complain. So guys, we'll bring it to a close. I just want to end on a few wee things. For those who've been listening, this is obviously not our usual live podcast. We're doing a sort of pre-recorded today, and this may happen going forward, so we can try and give us a level of consistency to our upload schedule for you guys, because we know a lot of people like to tune into these. But thank you very much for watching. There will be comments down below. Comment, like, and subscribe, and we'll try our best to get back to your comments. But we will still run a live chat session in this podcast, so if you've put anything in there, we will still have been responding to you. So don't be shocked if you're like, why did they not call this out during the podcast, but they responded me in the live chat? That's because I'm going to be sitting like a Gretchen, responding to all your comments and making sure none of you are saying bad things about us. That's how I work. But Jamie, more importantly from us, thank you for joining us as our guest today as well. Great thoughts, great discussion points. I hope you enjoyed the experience.
Definitely.
And I'm sure as with obviously Rob, we had Pix on for a while there, and I think we've got some other guests from other Twitch channels due to come on at some point. Guests are always welcome, and we hope to have you back again soon, Jamie. All right?
Yeah, definitely.
So from me, thank you very much. I've been your host. Time to say your goodbyes, gentlemen.
Goodbyes, and stay safe, and hopefully to see you soon.
Yeah, catch you all later, and happy wargaming.